This 26 Sports and CCTV high school football presentation is brought to you by Wolverine Power Cooperative and Great Lakes Energy. Your local electric cooperative is looking out for you. And by Munson Healthcare Cadillac Rehab Services.
Welcome to the Postgame show here on the Game of the Week on 26 Sports and CCTV. I'm Derek Tate alongside Bill Dooley as we just finished up what was a great game here at Veterans Memorial Stadium between the John Glenn Bobcats and the Cadillac Vikings, where John Glenn took its first lead at the 3-minute mark with the third touchdown pass, Joe Blong to Rory O'Hare. And the Bobcats improved to 2-0 on the early 2019 season.
You know, that's just an absolutely great, entertaining high school football game. I mean, you had everything. We saw a 99 and 3/4 yard run back pass, actually, for a touchdown, the longest one you're ever going to see, because the ball was basically touching the goal line. You had a stripped fumble recovery, by Colin Johnson, his second in 2 weeks. You had just some of the hardest runs on both teams from Caleb Christie and Tip Baker and Noah Cochran. I mean, just fantastic runs where these guys did not want to go down. It's fun to see. I just hats off to both teams. I know Cadillac lost by a point, but boy, oh boy, they fought their hearts out.
They absolutely did, and you got to tip your hat to both coaching staffs who, you really, Coach Mallory for the Cadillac Vikings, you had Tip Baker, who essentially couldn't throw the ball because of a dislocated right shoulder. The man still played an absolutely fantastic game on the defensive side of the football, and late in the fourth quarter, he got some carries, ran the ball as hard as he possibly could. But you also have to, on the other side, Coach Warner for the Bobcats. At one point, everything was kind of going against them. You saw a fluke touchdown on a fumble that trickled 20 yards into the end zone to end the first half, and yet Joe Blong and Rory O'Hare continued to plug away in the second half until they finally broke through, and unfortunately we saw extra points come into play in the difference of the final score. Yeah,
we mentioned that too, and they said look at that one at the end of the game, and sure enough that was the difference. But they were very good at changing up the game plan a little bit. They were going to Rory quite a bit in the first half, and then in the second half you saw Friedenberg come in, make several catches. McKenzie, 2 big catches right there. So it was not just the Rory O'Hare show, and that's give credit to Coach Warner to mix things up and have these different weapons. The Cadillac defense was really spread out tonight.
Long buying time outside the pocket.
Yes, that wears on a defense too.
And Caleb Christie it's really tough sledding running the football in the first half, but once they started to stretch this Vikings defense out vertically through the passing game, you saw Christie find some running lanes late in the second half, and unfortunately the Vikings just didn't have enough. And those extra points came back to bite them. One missed and off the post for Libby Lloyd. The other one, a botched snap that really, the hold was never there. And unfortunately, execution on special teams played into the first loss of the season for the Cadillac Vikings, despite an absolutely fantastic effort from Tip Baker and the rest of the Cadillac Vikings. So as we mentioned before, we're going to see next week these two teams are going to be opening up. And you want to mention Carson Razio, that offensive line for the Vikings, just road grading the entire night for Noah Cochran and the rest of the option.
Yeah, I wanted a special, for Razio, because there were so many plays where Julian Lemon relied on him for that critical first down several times. The whole offensive line, Benjelink and Wood, and they all did a great job. But I wanted to, just give him a special, Colin Johnson, great game, another defensive touchdown. Noah Cochran just running so tough the whole game, probably had over 100 yards. Julian Lemon coming in, taking over the reins, running the offense. I thought he did a great job. And then Tip Baker, one of the gutsiest performances that you're going to see in a long time. And then when you go over to the Bobcats, just some of the The players I was looking at, Cameron Eager. I mean, how many times did he pursue from the backside and just make those big plays? Some huge hits by Eager. You had Nathan Jacobs. I mean, calling his name out. He must have had close to 10 tackles. Bryce Friedenberg doing it all, offense and defense. Caleb Christie, running the ball, catching the ball out of the backfield, and then Joe Blong, their senior quarterback, and Rory O'Hare, their senior receiver. You have to give some shout-outs to some of these players. Just awesome game.
You saw, and one thing we kept mentioning was we saw how this Cadillac offense was unrelenting, just trying to run right at you this entire game, and it was very effective for the most part, especially in the first half. But you saw some of these undersized defenders for the Bobcats just, you know what, they knew they had to come up with stops to get Joe Blong enough opportunities.
Warowski, number 10, Warowski.
Yep,
remember, he's not a big
it.
guy, and he made several stops. They're like, whoa, man, So it doesn't matter. It's the heart and the tackling skills that they have.
And this was an absolutely fantastic game of the week here on 26 Sports and CCTV. You can't get a better one. And next week we're going to be right back here, Friday Night Lights at Veterans Memorial Stadium, as we're going to have the Petoskey Northmen opening up league action in the Big North Football League for the Cadillac Vikings. They're 1-1. They're going to be facing off against Petoskey Northmen. A great one as the John Glenn Bobcats edge out the Cadillac Vikings 20-19. Thank you for tuning in. For Bill Dooley, I'm Derek Tate. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week.